Welcome to the Pick and Pop podcast. Today we have one of the unheralded stars of British basketball coaching. Coach Chris Hackett has for the past 9 years been the head coach of Frank Phillips Junior College in the USA and has coached numerous players to the highest levels, including the NBA. Coach, welcome to the Pick and Pop podcast.
Thanks for having me, Tony.
You know, Coach, I'm going to say this is the reason why I started this series of podcasts and also on YouTube. You are one of our highest rated and ranked coaches. You've coached incredible levels, and our British coaching public, probably know very, very little about you and your journey. And I think it's so important to understand it because it's inspirational, and I know there's so much more to come. So I'd like to, start like I always do. How did you get introduced to the game of basketball? And, where was this passion and this drive for the game started?
It was actually my mom. My mom played for Betty Cadona with the Sheffield Hatters. Like before I was born, when I was a baby, I didn't even know what basketball was.
Sure.
But one of the years she went to, it was a reunion, either some, 20-year reunion or something like that. And we just went, and somebody said, well, he's pretty tall. Does he play basketball? And I'd never played. And they, Lorraine and Garnet Gale actually had like a beginner session that weekend at Ponds Forge. And they said, why didn't he come down? So I did, and I liked it. Okay. I mean, I wasn't any good at it, but for that year, I kept going and got a little bit better and liked it. I didn't really have a whole lot going. I didn't play very many sports. I'd been about 10 years old. But I started to like basketball. And then the men's side, obviously the Hatters had always been really good. But they started with the men's side. They created the Forgers.
The Forgers, yeah. Absolutely. With
Garnet. And Garnet was playing for them. And then the year after, Chris Finch came over and he played for them. And then that was the start of the Sharks franchise. So I was playing when they started the men's team. They started a junior program for boys. So my second year, that was the first time I'd ever played on a team, and did them. It was okay, just getting a little bit better. And I got selected to go to the north of England. Played for them. I went to Lilleshall. That was Andrew Sullivan's coming out party. Nobody had really heard of him, and he went there and he just dominated. I mean, he was about 6'5", and we were 14, 15 years old, and he was just a monster. But that kind of my eyes opened to that, and I ended up moving clubs. I've been in Sheffield, I think, I can't remember if it was 1 or 2 years, but then I moved to Mansfield with Ian Richards, and they got a really kind of established junior program.
Sure.
They didn't have a senior team, but they had a really good junior program. Whereas Sheffield, they kind of got the senior, but they hadn't really done much with juniors. So played for Ian for a while until I got to about 15, 16, and then kind of was getting almost, too good for juniors. And I went back to Sheffield and I played for the Forgers in the men's national league. I think it was maybe Division II, something like that, which was, really good competition, especially for 16-year-olds. At that time, there was still, most of those teams had an American, there was a lot of old pros. Really Sam Stiller was playing for a team. Mike Spade was playing for a team. So it was really good competition. It was a big step up for me. I didn't play a lot, but it was really good for me.
Sure.
And then the following year, Mansfield decided to start a men's team. The age group, Ian Richards' son, Danny Richards, one of the best players England had at the time. Absolutely. Really good player. And so as he was getting older, he was getting too good for junior. So that they started a men's program. So that's what we did. And I played for them until I left, really. I think we had 2 or 3 years in Division II or Division III. And there was we had a good group of kids. We were really young. We had a few players that were a little bit older, but for the most part, it was a core group of kids. It was,
Coach,
and then when we all left,
I'm pretty certain that in one of those years, we would have played you as London Towers Junior, like our Division II team. With our younger players. I'm pretty certain because I have maximum respect for Coach Ian Richards. He's run one of the best junior programs for so many years, a great teacher of the fundamentals, and obviously so many of, great players from that, region area have come through his program. So that's, that's a really interesting point, and I completely forgot about that. So, yeah.
Yeah. And that group, when we all got to about 18, 19, I went to the States. We had another, Danny went to the States. Martin Blankley was another player that went to the States. And then on that team also was Andrew Bridge, who he didn't leave, but he had an unbelievable career in England with the national team and with obviously with Newcastle and Sheffield. So we were young, but we had some talent. And that summer, what kind of got me over to the States was I've been trying for months, really. I mean, back then, you got to remember what everybody's got a video on their cell phone, and there's email and YouTube. Back then, I was writing letters and phoning coaches, and having to send a VHS tape that they couldn't even watch because they didn't have the same format. It was really difficult. So word of mouth became really important. And that summer, when I just turned 19, I played for Doncaster. We went to France and played in a tournament over there, and I played well for him. I came back. I worked out with him for the summer. And it was actually Bob Martin, and I don't even know if he would even remember this, but it was Bob Martin, the coach from Allen County in Kansas, called Bob Martin. Bob Martin, whatever he said was enough, and that's how I got the opportunity to go to the States. So more lucky than anything else at that point. Yeah. And then that's how I got over to America and started my playing career, but I tore up my shoulder. Never really recovered. It was right at the end of my freshman year, and I wasn't sure if I was even going to get to go back. And the coach knew I wanted to coach because he'd done some coaching classes, and then I'd always been involved. I'd done some stuff in the community with him, and he just kind of said, "Look, don't worry about anything. If you can come back and play, we want you to play. If you can't, you can help me out." And that's how I got my foot in the door for coaching. So that was my sophomore year in Kansas, and then obviously the junior college, you do 2 years, and then I had to kind of make my mind, did I want to try and play again, or did I want to try and stay with the coaches? So I tried out at a couple of places, but didn't get an offer good enough for me to say I got to take that. And then I had a really good offer to do the same thing I was doing at the junior college from Missouri Southern. And that coach was a really good coach, been there for years. And they were just coming up. They're Division II, but they just come up a 30-win season. They got to the Final Four. So it was a really program on the rise at that time. So I did that. And I did the same thing for him for a year. And then towards the end, somebody approached me about coaching a high school team. So I was like, well, you think 20, 21 years old, I thought, I knew everything. There's nothing I need to know about basketball. I can go coach him. So I went and did it, and obviously found out real quick that I knew nothing really.
Sure.
But it was a good experience. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing with coaching.
So at this time, you're a 21-year-old player. Obviously an injury. I mean, I exactly went through that same situation, but was there like this light bulb moment that you said to yourself, look, I could make a career in this, or this is something I really enjoy doing. I love being on the floor. What was that? Was that ever a time, or was that kind of like just circumstances? And
I'd probably say when I started helping out on the coaching side of the junior coach. But when I left, I mean, at the time, I remember I still want to call it the Bud League to this day, but it's the BBL.
Yeah, sure.
When I left, I mean, that league was rolling. So my mind, all I thought was, man, I'm going to go to the States for 4 years. I'm coming back, and maybe if I get good, I could have a chance to play in Europe.
And more importantly, your hometown team was one of the principal, franchises in the league at that time. It was the starred franchise. And, you are obviously Bridgie at that time was, a young player, and, McKinney and Payne. These were all local players that you must have grown up and played against. And you're seeing them there with Chris Finch, like that's got to be, even when Chris left, there's got to be a desire, because that's what we miss in this day and age. We just, the aspiration to play in the BBL and professionally isn't there anymore, and that's a real disappointment from my side.
Yeah.
So you're starting to get this feel for coaching, and where did that lead you then, as a young 21-year-old?
So I finished up that year, and then the last year of my college I had to do student teaching. It was the only year that I've not been involved in basketball. It was the only year I didn't have a team because it wasn't possible to do both. So I finished up. I did the student teaching, finished my degree, graduated, and by that time the assistant coach from Allen County had taken a head coaching job at another JUCO in Kansas on the women's side. And so that's what I was going to do. So I had a little bit of from graduating in May to starting the job in August, all I did over the summer, I just worked camps. Awesome. I worked 12 straight weeks. I worked at Kansas, Missouri State. Anybody that would have me,
Sure.
I went. I had nowhere to live. So the camps, Monday through Friday, I would live on campus. And then Saturday, Sunday, I'd try and find a team camp to work, which would do the same thing. Or I'd be on, my buddy's couch for the weekend. And I did it until the job started in August. But
Awesome.
this is where it kind of went wrong a little bit, in that I was going to work for the coach. And then right before school started, he left.
Wow.
So the AD called me in and said, "No, your job's safe. We're going to make you the interim coach just till we get something sorted, but we're going to hire somebody. We're doing interviews." So I did that. But obviously, whenever you work for somebody who didn't hire you, it's not always the greatest situation. And then obviously working for a first-year head coach, when the only coaches I'd known, the JUCO, they were both 20, 30-year veterans.
Sure.
And this was a young person with no head coaching experience. So, it's always a little bit rough. So. Yeah. And it was on the women's side, which I only kind of did that because of who I was going to work for, rather than, specifically wanting to be on that side.
Sure.
So it was a rough year, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do. And that was the year that Billy Mims came back to the States from England. And I almost went to work for him right out of college as a GA, but he only had the funding guaranteed for a semester. Didn't know if he'd be having it for the spring. I thought, I don't know if I want to do that. And then I got offered the full-time job, so I said, I'm going to take the safe bet.
Right.
But the men's side of the show was great. They went to the regional championship and they won 26 games. And the coach there, his assistant was getting married and leaving. He said, "Well, why don't you just come over and work for me? Get back on the men's side. Everything's going to be great." So I thought, well, that sounds like what I want to do.
Sure.
And so the campus liked me. And I got another job on campus so they could kind of package it and give me a little bit better of a deal to stay. I'd gotten married that summer. And my wife had got a job in town, and I just started my master's at another college that was about an hour away. And because of the marriage, I was going through the green card process.
Right. Okay.
And then right as the summer's about to start, that coach left and took another job on the back of the season that he just had. So same situation, new coach, didn't know who it was. He didn't hire me. He was a first-year head coach again. Wow. I thought, man, this is 2 years in a row. But at that point, I couldn't go with the coach because I got too much going on.
Sure.
And then Billy then left the job in Texas to take a job at Florida Tech. So I'd stayed in contact with him all year, and he kind of said, "Well, I've got an assistant that he inherited that wasn't necessarily going to be great, but that guy was looking at leaving, and he said, I think I'm going to have a job, but I don't know." And so, okay, we're doing that. I'm coaching. I'm running the campus housing. I'm doing my master's. I'm going through the immigration process, and it just all kind of fell into place right at the end. His assistant left, and the job opened up. My wife was able to get a job in Florida close by. My green card came through. I was one class short of my master's, but I was able to get it online through a different school and graduated with my master's, and then went to work for Billy. And then that was really for the first time, and since I came out of college, that I was kind of settled. And obviously Billy's a good coach. And
so just before we get into the, to that incredible part, to a legend as well in Billy Mims, tell me about your thoughts on coaching at this time. Were you specializing in any part of skill development? Were you working with bigs? Were you working with guards? Were you, were you starting to think tactically? Did you start developing your philosophy? Just talk to me about this real early phase in your career there.
Yeah, I was doing it. And actually part of my degree, one of the things they wanted me to do, you had to put together a portfolio on coaching.
Sure.
So it made you start to think, and there's a lot of things that I thought I knew, and I knew then you start thinking about it, you have to put it down on paper. You start thinking, no, hold on a minute. I don't know that I have thought about that. And so that kind of forced me to think about it. And for a long time, that portfolio, I kept updating it every year and changing things. I think, okay, I don't know that I agree with that anymore. And this is better, so I kept kind of improving, and I don't do so much anymore. But yeah, I was really starting to develop kind of how I wanted to run things. And, even the coaches, like I said, it wasn't necessarily a great situation, but you could look at my program right now and I could show you different parts that I took from everybody. The coaches even that I didn't get along great with and didn't think everything they did was great, but there's parts that I took.
I don't want to you put yourself into this situation, and I'm sure, like all of us, we've had luck, and you can say destiny, luck, whatever it is. But one thing that I kind of still can't get across to specifically British coaches that coach on the floor in this country is, you know, what some of the things you have and you almost take for granted, the repetition, you know, the facilities, the level of the actual athlete and player that you're working with, the knowledge and actual understanding of those players, and, you know, just the whole culture around that. You know, it to me, you can't fail to become a better coach because you're immersed in it. You know, if you wanted to, you could speak to the women's assistant coach and start exchanging ideas. Hey, what are you running sideline out of bounds? Blah, blah, blah. You know, all of these type of things. Hey, I saw you guys running a drill the other day. What's that drill? Explain it to me. You know, there's all this converse. Now, I'm not faulting anyone here in the UK. I'm just explaining to people, we don't have that culture. If you're a junior coach in this country and you practice Tuesday and Thursday for 1.5 or 2 hours a week, that's just not enough contact and time on the floor to keep developing and being immersed in a culture. And that's what I'm so excited to hear from you.
Yeah.
You know,
the experience side of things for sure. Because I mean, think about in a normal year, you know, I'll plan and coach probably 100 to 120 practices.
Absolutely.
As far as individual workouts, the season, postseason workouts, we'll prepare, scout for probably 40 scrimmages and actual games, 40 to 50 games. You know, and I'm 40 years old, but this is going to be my 20th year.
It's amazing. Absolutely awesome.
When you think about all those, what you're just talking about, reps and things like that, 100 practices, 40 games a year for 20 years, that's a lot of contact time on the floor.
Huge amount. And in great facilities, you know, or, you know, I'm not saying you're in, you know, University of Kentucky or, you know, like the or NBA facilities, but you're in high level basketball facilities that we only dream about here in, you know, only Leicester and Newcastle have got that kind of full time.
Yeah, I mean, we have our own gym, own weight room, own, you know, athletic training room, swimming pool, weight, you know, everything. And we pretty much have 24/7 access to it as far as. Because, I mean, even times when you have a bad practice in the morning, I mean, sometimes if I'm upset, you know, I'll bring them back again in the afternoon.
We're gonna get onto that in a minute. So, and now you go to, you know, truly, you know, a polarizing figure, but, you know, no doubt one of the legends, you know, in British basketball, in the BBL or whatever era you want to talk about this, you know, Coach Billy Mims, you know, a very, very, very unique coaching style. I observed it only from afar. I was very lucky to be on the sidelines and seeing people like, you know, Kevin Cadle and Chris and Nick work. I saw Billy from afar, sometimes sitting behind his bench, listening to him on TV, you know, super charismatic, you know, in how his personality, you know, drove the program forward. Was this a complete, you know, must have been, even with some of the American coaches you worked for, must have been completely different.
Oh, yeah. I mean, to a degree, yeah. I mean, he's so positive. He's so enthusiastic. And I mean, he's never going to change that. So, I mean, but that to a degree, that is kind of a breath of fresh air because there's a lot of coaches here. I know myself, I'm not as enthusiastic as Billy is, for sure. I don't know if anybody is.
No.
You know, it's really easy as a coach to focus on what you're not doing right, what needs to get better. But he's really good at focusing on, hey, what's going great? You know, you're doing really good. Whereas I'm always looking at what you're doing wrong. He's always looking at what you're doing right. You know, so there's good and bad with both of that. But yeah, so definitely.
You went in, how many years did you do there first question? And then secondly, what type of things were you learning and doing there? Because Billy is a very hands-on coach. So what were you doing? What was your primary responsibilities with him?
Well, I was there 5 years total, which was nice because I mean I'd had 1 year as a coach at Allen, one at Missouri Southern, one at the high school, one on the women's side at Neosho, one on the men. So like five programs in 5 years. So to finally get somewhere, Florida's great, the location. You know, I was really happy with where we were living. Got along great with Billy in terms of, I mean, he's like my brother. I mean, we got along off the floor really well. But on the floor, I was learning a lot from him. The basketball was really high level. So like I was really content. I mean, if I was still at Florida Tech now, I don't think I'd have too many complaints. You know, so I really enjoyed it. But I kind of picked up more and more responsibilities as the years went by. The first year, not so much. I mean, you just did what I was told, and But as you go on, and he's always been such an offensive-minded coach. And if you'd have asked me what my strengths were going in, I probably would have said, I think I'm pretty good with the offenses. But that was never going to be an option. But he wasn't too concerned with the defensive side of things. So I kind of immersed myself in the defensive side of things.
Sure.
And so I took over the defense eventually, and he just kind of did the offense. We were almost like American football, offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. And, I'd put my practice plan together and email it to him in the morning, and he'd put it on the practice plan, and he'd do his part, I'd do my part, and then we play.
So what? Just asking, what is the philosophy that you were using there? Was mainly yourself, with Billy's input? What were you doing? Pack line. What was your main?
Mostly man, almost man. All man. He was a zone coach, and I never really knew that. And then I've watched some of the old Leopards games, and he was doing some of the same stuff with the Leopards. A lot of the 3/4 court press and some zone. And man, I don't ever remember that in the BBL, but I wouldn't have known even what I was watching probably at that point.
Oh, sure.
So we transitioned away from a lot of the zone and the press to more just a straight up man to man. A little bit more pressure, not so much a pack line. Back then, I've changed again completely now. But back then, we were pretty aggressive, hard showing on screens, trapping, not full court pressing, but a lot of pressure in the half court. Very physical. We weren't worried so much about fouls and things like that. And then there was a lot of teams playing that way, and that's kind of they changed the rules a little bit, changed how they were calling the game, and everybody had to kind of back off a little bit. But back then, we were able to be a little bit more aggressive. And teams in that league were doing the same thing. Lynn and Barry University were both, their coaches didn't have tons of talent, but they beat you up a little bit.
Yeah, sure. And then were you what else were some of the big takeaways of working with Billy? Game management, or certain areas of preparation, his offensive style. I mean, obviously he had an incredible feel for to be honest with you, it could be easily said he was ahead of his time for the up tempo type offensive game that he played.
I mean, I would say when I left and I took most of what we did as far as on the offensive side came with me. How we ran practices, I do very similar, even now, still very similar to that. The offense, not so much, just because the game's changed so much. But the way he promoted the program off the floor, and he was a great face for the university and for the athletic department, not just the basketball team, but he did a good job in terms of getting sponsorship, getting people to come to the games, getting people excited about the games, and obviously we were winning too, so that always helps.
Sure.
So a lot of what he does on that, I'm nowhere near as good as he is at the promotion side of things, but I do a lot of the same things here.
That's awesome. Was there anyone else around this time that you were being influenced by? Were there other coaches of your own, same age group, or kind of like that you knew that you were conversing with, exchanging ideas?
Not so much at that time. That's probably one of the periods of time when not so much, because up until that point there was guys that, like you said, the women's coach, especially when I was on the women's side talking with the men's coach. We spent a lot of time together, so he was really good. So I kind of had it. What I did do while I was in Florida, I spent a lot of time at the Division I schools, because there's so many and they were so close. And we were playing some of them each year. We'd play a couple of guarantee games against those schools, but I'd go and watch Central Florida practice, or I'd go down and watch Florida Atlantic practice. And we had the opportunity. We played Florida State, and we played the University of Florida when Billy Donovan was there. Yeah. So I got a chance to see some of those bigger programs and how they operated, and I like doing that. I still like doing that today. I go down to Texas Tech. They're only a couple hours from here, and I go watch them practice. So I really enjoyed doing that, but that was kind of more of an educational thing too.
Okay. So after Billy, what was the next stop after that?
I was here. I came to Frank.
Straight
so it was after the end of my third year at Tech. A junior college opened up in town, and I was a finalist for that. I interviewed for it, and I didn't get it. But then I started thinking. That was really the first job I'd applied for in over 3 years. And it just kind of kick-started me and started thinking, well, maybe. And then mid-season, another junior college in Florida opened up. A guy left mid-season. So again, I interviewed for that, and I didn't get down. They didn't hire anybody. They hired a coach that was out of work, basically, which was probably the best move, because it would have been hard for me to. It would have left Billy in the lurch if I would have left mid-season to take another job. It would have been hard for me to take the job and be successful, and it would have, put Billy in a bind too. So luckily, I didn't get the job. I didn't have that decision to make, but that was two jobs. And all of a sudden, I started really thinking, maybe it is time to start thinking about having your own and your own program. And I got back on the Florida Junior College. I played at junior college. My first job was junior college. So I've always I liked that level.
Yeah.
And luckily the year after, I got hired at Frank, and this is 10 years on now.
So let's So I said 9. I knew it was 9, 10. So this is the 10th season, is it? That's
great. I've done 9. This will be
9.
10.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. The whole process. First of all, I mean, that's an incredible achievement. Again, it goes kind of under the radar here in the UK. What was the process there? Was Billy, helping with some of the kind of like recommendation, or were you just driving yourself? How did it come to be that this young British coach, becomes a head coach at a junior college in the United States of America?
Yeah, I mean, Billy was the one probably sealed it. I'd gone through the process kind of without anybody's help. I'd applied, and I had the first interview, and then kind of went dead for a little bit, and then had another conversation with the president. And then he was saying, he was kind of, I could tell by the conversation, he was going to hire me. He wanted to be sure, because I was coming from so far afield, coming from Florida all the way to Texas. And I said, the man you need to speak to is Billy. I said, I've been here with him for 5 years. He knows me. And I said, and the president didn't know that, but where Billy had coached in Texas was in this area.
Right.
And I said, he coached in West Texas. He's known me for the last 5 years. I said, that's who you need to talk to. And I didn't hear anything for a couple of days. Then Billy called me and said, I just got off the phone with the president. It sounds like he's going to hire you, but he didn't say yes or no, but it sounded like it to me. And I kind of got that back when I felt like he was just wanting somebody to confirm, that it was a good move. And then he called me that Monday morning and offered me the job Monday morning. I flew out Tuesday afternoon. And I was on campus for about 5 days, just trying to work out what we were going to do with the existing players. I took over a really bad situation.
Sure, yeah.
The coach they had, he should never got hired in the first place. They fired a coach, hired an interim. He ran it into the ground. They fired him, and when he left, I had no uniforms, I had no players, I had no basketballs, I had nothing. I had to start over. So it was from ground zero. So I flew out for 5 days, went back to Florida. I was there 2 weeks working from Florida, but finishing up with kind of the transition of leaving. And then I was gone. I was full-time on campus in May. I was on campus all of May. And then I flew back to Florida for the summer, and back out to Texas in August.
So you now become a head coach. Any of the first, in the first season or so, what were the shocks? Because it's one thing being an assistant. I've been there. You take over a program. Suddenly, every decision you make is the final decision. It's the one that counts. Recruiting. Anything you do tactically, technically, skill development, all of these things are falling on your shoulders. Building that kind of culture in the program. What were the things that shocked you the most? Being in the sole person in charge.
I felt like I don't think you're ever ready. I think until you do it, you're not ready. You think you are. I thought I was ready for 2 or 3, and even every year you think, well, I'm definitely more ready now than I was the year before when I thought I was ready then. So I don't know that you're ever really ready, but I think I was definitely prepared. Sure. But Billy gave me plenty of responsibility. At that point, I got about 10 years experience. So I kind of had a good idea of what I wanted to do going in. I wasn't like flying by the seat of my pants. I kind of knew going in how I wanted the program to run, the academic side, the recruiting side. So I had a good idea. And obviously, things didn't go the way I thought they would in some areas. just like anything else, you think, oh, this is definitely going to work. And then when you do it, you're like, it didn't work at all. So there's things that you change. But for the most part, it was a good learning experience. I don't think I was very good, but I certainly made adjustments really quickly. And our league is unreal. And that's the other thing that I didn't know going in. I mean, I knew it was a good league because Texas has always been kind of one of the power in junior college.
Absolutely.
But Kansas is a good league, and I'd played and coached in that league. And Florida's a good league, and I've recruited that. So I felt like I knew that it's this league. I mean, 5 of the teams have got 8,000 seat arenas. You're talking NBA player after NBA player, teams with 10 or 12 Division I players on the same roster. And that I wasn't sure about. So the team that I recruited my first year, I thought was going to be really competitive, and we weren't. We out of conference. We played in Kansas and won, and we had a pretty good job going in. Played some of the Colorado schools, Oklahoma schools did well, but once we got into league play, it's a whole other animal. I mean, the coaches are really good. Players are really good. It's not like junior college. It's an extension of Division I.
That's all.
Most junior colleges, they've got, undersized players. It's very fast paced. Our league's not. It's very slow paced. There's tons of size. There was, last year we had, I think, 9 7-footers in the league. I mean, it's legitimate size at every position. So some of the kids that I brought in weren't big enough, some weren't quick enough, and none of them, I didn't have a player on the roster that was a bad player. No. But good players aren't enough in this league. I mean, to be competitive, I mean, you need elite level kids.
Sure. So let's talk about that. That's a great segue. Let's talk about recruiting, because when we talk about, USA, college athletics, I mean, really and truthfully, the first building block of any program is, you have to be able to recruit. Doesn't matter really how good you are as a coach. The talent has got to be there, or certainly the type of player that you're looking to get. Tell me about your attitude to that. Are you recruiting a certain type of player? Size, speed, strength? Are you looking at skill set? Like we hear all the time, you got to have elite skill. Or are you looking for character, durability? Talk to me about the type of player that you recruit and you were recruiting back then.
Yeah, well, I mean, the one thing at Frank is we're not as funded as well as the big teams in our league.
Sure.
So we're towards the bottom in terms of funding. So that makes a little bit of difference in terms of the packages we can put together. We can give full scholarships, but I don't have 10 of them. So I have to be really kind of when I'm taking a kid, and if I'm going to put him on a full ride, I've got to be really sure that I think this kid's going to be an all conference type level kid.
Sure.
But the one thing that most U.S. kids they'll get financial aid from the government. So we were able to package some of that. So, I've got 13 kids on roster right now, and I don't think anybody's paying anything to go to school here, but it's packaged in different ways. But I have more challenges with the financial side than most of the other teams in our league. Size. I mean, we need Division I level size to be competitive.
Do you recruit a player in only with the mindset that this player is going to be a mid to high major Division I college player, or even a low Division I college player? Or do you recruit the player thinking, I got to win, so I got to go get this type of player?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, because the league, with the transfer situation with Division I, how it's been the last 6 or 7 years, I mean, our league is just full of Division I transfers. It's nearly Odessa, South Point, the bigger teams in our league. They've got 8 or 9 D1 bounce backs that are going to come from Division I and go back to Division I. So the idea of bringing in an 18-year-old high school kid and developing him for 2 years, it almost goes out the window, because in that 2 years we're going to get drilled. Wow. We have to be a little bit more ready. So, but because we don't have the same financial situation, I have to take a few more chances than other kids, than other teams do. I don't always get, if you're getting a kid from a Division I program, the kid's a Division I level talent, because he wouldn't have been there in the first place if he wasn't. So I've got kids that maybe do have that. Maybe I think they've got the skill set, but they're a little bit undersized, or they've got the size, but they're a little bit slow. Or, most of my guys have something that's not perfect, and not all of them. I've got 4 or 5 guys on this roster that'll have a chance to go Division I. They've got the size, and they've got the skill set, and they've got the athleticism. Whether or not they get it done in the classroom, whether or not they stay out of trouble. But, there's a lot of things that can go wrong for a kid. But I mean, every kid we bring in, I bring in with the intention of that if he does everything right, he'll have a chance to be a Division I player. Then obviously that doesn't always work out. Or I'd say almost more times than not, it doesn't work out. Something lets you down. Either the hole that we thought we could maybe fix, we can't fix, or they don't get it done in the classroom, or maybe they do get in trouble. But the way my president is, he's not putting a lot of pressure on me necessarily to win. He wants me to do things. He obviously is happy when we win, but he wants me to do things the right way.
That's awesome.
So if it meant me taking a bad character kid to maybe win a few more games, he'd tell me no, don't do it.
Okay.
That's
awesome.
A little bit of pressure off of me, because it means that if I can do things the right way, I don't have to compromise my beliefs, because I think, man, if I don't win a few more games this year, they're going to find me. I've got a little bit of stability and a little bit of security. So that's good. It allows me to kind of coach to what I really believe in. But that's not the case in a lot of places. We've had some good years here, but some of our good years would have got me fired at some of the jobs in our league, so.
Crazy.
The grass isn't always greener.
Two quick questions on the recruiting front. How do you utilize your connections in UK, Europe, to leverage, some of the more talented players to potentially come and play on your program?
It kind of depends on the year. Yes, I do. Like when I was with Billy, we made a living with Eastern European kids. I mean, we had kids from Estonia, Latvia, Serbia, Croatia. We had 5 or 6 on the same roster. Well, I don't have the funding to do that here.
Right.
So I'm basically limited. I can take 3, maybe 4 international kids. So then that puts a lot of pressure on those kids to be good right away. And a lot of them aren't. It's a big adjustment to go from high school to college. It's an even bigger adjustment to go from Croatia, Serbia, England, wherever it might be, to the US. So for those kind of kids to come in and be good right away is difficult.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work out. So I've gone from early on at Frank of having a lot of internationals to then backing off them almost completely, unless they were proven in the US that they'd come to a prep school or they've been to high school here, or they were transferring from another college, to now I'm back to taking them again, but we're just being really selective on who we take. We've got 3 internationals on this roster, and all 3 of them have got a chance to be major players. We've got a Nigerian kid who he'll have a chance to be a pro. I mean, he's unreal. We've got a Serbian kid, and we've got a kid from Haiti.
How are you getting those 2 other kids, Serbian and Nigerian kid? Are they coming from the high school system, or are you using connections, contacts?
These connections. The kid from Haiti played at a prep school in Florida, so that was an easy one. And it was an easy situation for even getting from into the country because of COVID. We had an Australian sign that couldn't get a visa. So we ended up having to let that one go. And I think we're going to bring him in at Christmas. But that didn't work out for him. But the kid from Nigeria, we made that happen. And then the Serbian kid, we made that happen. And that the Serbian guy, I've gotten several players from him, and they've all been good. They've all been either D2 low Division I players. They've all kind of gone on. So
awesome. That's great.
I felt good about taking him. The kid from Nigeria is better than we thought. The Serbian kids is at least as good as we thought. So we feel like we've got a little bit lucky with those 2.
Great. This is going to fit into like, what are you actually, doing now from your coaching philosophy? But so just the last question with recruiting, are you, so now you're settled, you're an experienced coach, you're a winning coach, you've got the culture of a program. Are you starting to then really look at players that fit a style of basketball, or you're still taking that talent and fitting maybe, to that talent? What are you recruiting to like that?
Both. We know what we want going in as far as if we need 2 point guards, we need 2 bigs, so you've got a general idea of what you need to fill out your team. What we've got coming back, but you'd be a fool to turn down talent. If I had a mid-major Division I transfer point guard, and I wouldn't say, well, I've already got 2 point guards signed. I would take him and I would figure it out.
Right.
I'd rather have good players than pigeonhole kids into positions or whatever. Same with the way you play. If it means me having to put 2 point guards on the floor at the same time because they're my 2 best players, then that's what we'll do. We'll find a way to make it work.
Right.
You've got to have your best players on the floor, but primarily we recruit to the system. We know what we want in each position, what each kid needs to be able to do. Like our bigs, they need to be big, but we need mobility, and we need at least somewhat of a skill set. Not necessarily they have to be able to shoot, but we need to be able to play kind of face up. The way the game's changed, we don't play our big on the block much, certainly not initially. Most of our stuff, we play in high post most of the time.
So you playing mostly 5 out or 4 out, 1 in, or
4 out, 1 in, and we'll get our big to the block, but it's usually off a pick and roll or a rip screen or something. We start them away and bring them in, that kind of thing. So they need to be able to operate. We need them to be true bigs, but if they can handle the ball at the high post, even like I said, they don't necessarily have to make plays, but they have to be able to catch face up and be able to get rid of the ball without turning it over. So we have an idea what we want from every position. We don't really play with a 4 anymore. I was always ahead of things, but I never played with two bigs. Even back when everybody was playing with 2 bigs, I would play with 1 true big and then kind of a stretch 4. Somebody who was big enough to defend inside, but could operate outside and spread out a little bit more. And I always used to say I'd rather be skilled at the 4 spot than big. And if my 4-man wasn't skilled enough, I'd rather go with another wing, play 2 wings, and play 3 men at the 4.
So are you converting most of the kind of super athletic, pretty tall 3s into kind of stretch 4s? Is that what you're doing some of the time?
I would say that's what I did. Now I don't even recruit the 4. We want a 3. I would say we've got like a 4-5 playing the 5. We've got a 3-4 playing the 4, and then we probably got a shooter out there, and then either 2 combos or a point guard in the combo. The combos is another thing. If you'd ask me, about 15 years, I used to say, don't send me a combo guard. I don't want them. I used to say, you think you're getting somebody that can play both. Half the time it's a player that can't play either.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's usually half the time it's an undersized shooting guard, a 5'11" shooter that they say, well, he can play some point, but he really can't.
No.
So you take a kid that's not big enough to play the 2, but he can't play the 1, and nothing. But now, the way we're playing, we can live with it a little bit more.
Well, I mean, there's so many of those 2s in the one body. But the thing about it is now when they come off the pick and roll, they can actually flat out shoot the ball. So,
exactly.
They got a discernible skill now. So that's crazy. And I was just gonna say, just joking aside, I haven't really had this conversation with too many coaches, but can you imagine the amount of 3-4, 4-3 hybrids that literally got crushed in their careers because they really, they were either undersized, they didn't really have a skill set, and these guys now, can literally swing games because of their versatility. It's unbelievable where the game has gone. Absolutely crazy.
The kid that we had that got drafted. I'm telling you, 10 years ago, nobody would have touched him. They would have said he's a tweener, can't play the 3, can't play the 4, no chance, no position for him in the NBA. Now he's perfect. He's 6'9", he can handle it, he can shoot it, he rebounds it. He's exactly what they need. And that's what they're looking for.
Before we get onto Elise, but let's talk about you. So now your philosophy, at this precise moment, it must be more rounded out. Where are you? Still defensively minded, offense, just like you said, you're 4 out, 1 in, and mostly, a lot of movement, athletic, running.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about your philosophy and how it's changed. And do you think it can change even more?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it'll change. I mean, it seems like every 3 or 4 years, everything's kind of getting reinvented, or you're finding a better way of doing it, or somebody comes up with something offensively, so you have to change your defense to counter it, and then you change your defense, so somebody comes up with another offense. It's just the way the game changes, and a lot of it goes around in circles. We might end up back where we were 15 years ago at some point, but for now, everybody's gone smaller, so you've almost had to do the same thing just to be able to match up. But then obviously with everybody going smaller, switching becomes so much more prevalent defensively. I was 10 years ago. I mean, we wouldn't even let our kids switch early on. I mean, there'd be certain players, certain actions that as we moved the season along, we would start to adjust things. But early on, we said, no, you got to get through.
Absolutely.
Now we switch everything. I mean, we don't even think about it. I switch 1 through 5. We'll switch out big on, and we live with it. You know, sometimes it hurts us a little bit, but for the most part, it's not been too bad. But we switch a lot, so obviously offenses changes.
When I was in Japan last year, you know, it was laughable because, you know, I had done like you said, you know, I'd switch some stuff, and you know, I call switching white, and so we'd white everything, and you know, it'd be like a double, you know, we'd want to try to switch back onto the, you know, to the matchups, and then we'd be like, you know, it'd be like triple switching almost every single play, and I'd be like, Jesus Christ, I've never done this stuff before, but it's the way the game's going. And you know, you just look at the NBA and that, you know, in the bubble, you know, literally, you know, you're getting 4 or 5 switches in one action almost. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So
yeah, I mean, the offense of that's had to change too. I mean, I've got sets, I mean, Billy ran that I've run, we've run, like we've won games with these plays, and now I look at it and think, we ran that, okay, they're gonna down that ball screen, they're gonna switch that, and they're gonna take us out of everything.
Yeah.
So a lot of offenses that we would have ran for years, now you can't hardly run them. I mean, you're not even gonna get. So that's why you're starting to see, especially in the NBA, but at every level, you know, those kind of the gaggle actions, the blur screens, the ghost cuts. It's not even really an offense. It's just trying to create indecision.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and like if I'd have drawn some of these plays up and showed you 10 years ago, you'd look at it and say, I mean, I don't get it. How are we going to get a shot out of this? But now,
I talked to a coach a couple of weeks ago, and I said, I've never in my whole time of watching the NBA seen so many guard-to-guard screening actions, especially ball screen actions. You know, guards setting ball screens. It's unbelievable. Yeah. It's like, you know, what the hell is going? You know, like you said, it's, you know, it was inconceivable. You might get a rub screen occasionally, you know, on a ball, but we're talking about legitimate, you know, like double drag actions with guards. It's like, you know, laughable, you know, and the big, likely the one dribbling the ball off of them. It's
even
crazy.
Like the last year or so, it's like in the NBA especially, it's like who could be the most unorthodox? You know, the NBA was always so predictable with, you know, they played through their superstar. They were a lot of isolation, a lot of two-man game, pick them. I mean, I never would have thought the NBA, I mean, they're almost playing equal opportunity offense. And that's never been the case in the NBA. They never would have done that. But now, I mean, you see some of the actions where these guys screening, looping around and re-screening for the same guy that set a screen for them. And, you know, but it's all just trying to create indecision because they know they're going to switch and they're just trying to create confusion on the switch. You look at that play, you know, when Anthony Davis hit the 3 against Denver to win the game, there was no switch, but they switched.
There was no switch.
Normally, you think 2 seconds left, you got to set a great screen, get the shooter open. Now he didn't even hardly set a screen, and they miscommunicated. One thought it was a screen, one thought it wasn't. One switched, one didn't. Wide open. Yeah, and that's what the NBA is coming up with. So I mean, everything trickles down from the NBA. It goes right through Division I, down to JUCO, down to high school, and you know, I always say the NBA is 3 or 4 years ahead of everybody.
I love that terminology, indecision. I'm going to use that. That's great stuff. Talk to me a little bit about, you know, you as a coach. How would you describe yourself? Players coach, you know, hard on players, hold people accountable. What's your kind of style? You know, as a coach, you know, both on the sideline and practice.
I'd say hard on players, but not as hard as I used to be. I still am not buddy. I mean, I'm pleased. I'm always enthusiastic, pleased when they do something right, but I'm always looking at what's going to get me beat, what's going to slow you down, you know. And I know where they all want to go. I know what their goals are, so I'm always looking at what are they doing that could disrupt that. And I know they probably think I'm too negative, and sometimes I am. But I'm kind of looking out for. I know what's going to trip them up. You know, and I'm trying to avoid that for him. But I mean, I was definitely a lot more aggressive, a lot louder. You know, I'm a little bit slower now to get mad, even though it does happen every once in a while. But I think kids have changed a little bit. I don't think they accept the old school coaching. You know, I told you to do it, so you just do it without question.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's times I'll blow up, and I mean, and even then, most of the time it's control. I know what I'm doing. I'm doing it for a reason. But if you're going to go in at halftime and kick the door down and blast them, you don't have very many bullets in that gun. I mean, that gets old really quick. So I think, if it's once or twice a season, I think it jolts them, and sometimes you get the reaction you want, and most times you do. But you go and do that every game, they tune that out really fast.
Saying that, Coach, I can't agree with you anymore. You've just articulated it in such a great way. But what do you do then when a player is making a mistake multiple times, whether it's in practice or whether it's in a game? Talk to me about how you would deal with a player in that situation then.
I mean, in a game, we just take them out. I don't. But it's not. I'll take them out. I'll take them out of practice. When we've got players that we've had in the program for years. We've got players that have been in the program 5 weeks, 6 weeks, however long we've been gone. So those guys, they don't know what they're doing. They don't know the system. They don't know the level they got to play at. They don't realize how hard they've got to defend. They don't realize these things. So when they don't get many opportunities because we're working with the guys that know what they're doing. They're the ones that we're going to be playing. The guys towards the end, they're going to be our guys next year, and these other kids have left. But they don't get a lot of rope. I bring them in if they mess up quick, they usually come out pretty quick. But it's not. I'm not done with them, if you know what I mean. They're those 3 bigs that we've got this year. They're all freshmen. Last year we had really young guards, but we had 2 sophomore bigs that were really good. One went Division I, one went Division II. And this year, our guards are all sophomores, but our bigs, all 3 of them are freshmen. So we've been working with them more than probably any other kids we've worked with. And luckily, they've got the work ethic. They want to do it. They want to be good. And so they've been coming in. They've been doing double workouts in all our individuals, and they've been coming in as a group, just those 3, another 2 times a week. So we've been working with them a ton, and they've improved a lot quickly. But that's what it's got to be. It's got to be work. They're not going to get a chance to play for a lot of mistakes. I think that's just the reality of the situation.
How are you dealing with 2 specific situations? I asked this to the most experienced coaches, but how are you dealing with post game and then also post-game review? So take a for example, you play, I don't know, what's the Saturday you play some of your games?
We non-conference we'll play at the weekends. A lot of them. In conference we'll play Mondays and Thursdays.
Monday and Thursday. So say you play on the Thursday, what do you do straight after the game in the locker room? Are you coming in? Is it either win or loss? Is there a big debrief, or is it just a quick couple of words? What are you doing as a coach?
If it's a big win, I'll stick my head in. If it's a bad loss, I'll stick my head in. 80% of the time, I don't go anywhere near the locker room. I just leave them.
Wow. Right.
I go straight to my office. I mean, I'll catch them as they walk by because my office is near the locker room. But I've done, and that's from Billy. Billy did the exact same thing. He wouldn't go near the locker room after the game. And and I think back on how many times I've gone in and after a loss and ripped somebody for something. Then you look at the film later on, you think, I wasn't really, that kind of thing. Or you look at it, you think, well, that's not really as bad as what I said he did. And, that wasn't even his rotation. And I got on, so I would rather look at the film and then talk to him the next day. And then that way everybody's calm. No one's, and the opposite. You go in there and you're raving and you're happy because you've won. And then you look at the film and you think, we weren't really that good. We were a little bit lucky. So I always preach to the guys, you're never as good as you think you are when you win, and you're never as bad as you think you are when you lose. Great. Try to be even keel. I'm really process orientated. I just feel like the results come through doing the right thing. Sure. So that's what we preach. A good shot doesn't become a bad shot because it didn't go in. No. A good shot's a good shot, a bad shot's a bad shot, and whether it goes in or not, that's the luck of the draw. If you're a good shooter shooting a good shot, sometimes they go in, sometimes they don't. So I try to be pretty analytical. I try to talk about things with as least emotion as possible. And after a game, win or lose, you're full of emotion. So I think it's better just to get out of there.
No, it's great stuff. I mean, it's really interesting. What are you post game review the day after or day after that, whenever you do your first like video review, are you sending clips to, are your assistant sending clips to players, or are you doing a team debrief? How do you do that?
90% of the time it's a team debrief. We'll, depending on what time we play, depending if we're on the road, depending on when we get back, a lot of times we'll get the film done that night and then broken down. Obviously, we have Synergy, which I know you've used that. It's a great program. It makes life, way easier. So, usually Synergy. So sometimes if it's a really quick turnaround, we'll have to do it ourselves, but Synergy gets our stuff back within 24 hours.
I just want to make a quick mental note here. Those young coaches, that still isn't the way to learn to break film.
No, absolutely not.
That's the cheap way of breaking film.
So that's the negative side. It's made my life easy, but I feel like my scouts are even better. But there's teams that I felt like never even scouted. Now all of a sudden they scout because Synergy making it so easy. So teams that where we used to be able to get what we want, all of a sudden they're calling out our out of bounds plays, and I'm like, man, if you didn't have Synergy, I know you wouldn't have scouted me.
Yeah, but I also tell young coaches that with a program like Synergy, the only problem is you don't get feel. So you miss how, a coach is calling a timeout and why did he call that play, or, they've run that as an out of bounds 2 times in a row, or you just don't get feel or context of a game like you used to when you used to break film in a more traditional manner. But I will say,
we always work full game, and we use the Synergy for putting the film together, for clipping it.
Awesome
it
stuff.
Makes it easier, but and I like looking at their stats when you can look and you say, okay, this team's playing 80% man, 15% zone. That's good information when you put your practice plans together, knowing that you're probably not going to see a whole lot of zone, or they're probably not going to press you, or the opposite, they are going to. We need to really work on that.
Yeah. So, are you in these post game review meetings, these video meetings, are you fairly critical of players for making certain mistakes or showing a lot of positive stuff? How are you breaking those video sessions down?
Try to do both. I try to balance the positive and the negative, the things we're doing good and the things that we need to get better at. Sometimes, like I say, if it's a bad loss, or if we've done something specific that's really cost us, they may be clip after clip of the same thing. But they're few and far between. Usually our films, and we don't spend too much time in there. Again, we go in there for an hour before. We're usually in and out probably 10, 15 minutes tops.
Sure.
And that would include, like, if we play conference game on Monday night, Tuesday we're going to go light, so it'll be film. We'll watch some film on us if things we need to correct. Film on the opposition as far as putting together kind of a scout.
Yep.
Yeah. Then we'll get on the floor. We'll maybe walk through or drill some of the stuff that we struggle with. We'll go through the scout, or we may drill some stuff that, if we know we're going to get ball screened to death, we'll go on our coverages on that. We might get on and do that, but usually we're pretty light on the actual floor. No contact, no full court. Wednesday we'll go a little bit harder to play Thursday. Fridays we take off, and then we'll practice Friday, Saturday, Sunday, ready for Monday.
Wow, unbelievable. Good stuff. Okay. Not many British coaches have had the opportunity to coach a player that eventually ends up in the NBA. You did that, and I tell anyone that can just Google some of your your Twitter or your Facebook and see Alizé Johnson coming back to you. How many months was that? Last month when he came back?
Last week.
Coach, I was so blown away by it because you could see the love and affection that he has for you as a coach. Talk to me about first recruiting him. He comes into your program, the whole journey, really, in a kind of nutshell. How did that all come about?
He wasn't like a highly recruited player when we recruited him. He had some other offers, but it wasn't like we had to beat off Kentucky to get him. He was one of those kids, kind of a Scottie Pippen situation. He was a late grower. He sophomore in high school, he was a 5'10" point guard. You know, when we signed him, he was a 6'5" wing. That's what we signed and recruited, and we were happy to get him. He was a good player, no question about it. But he was 6'7" by the time he got to campus, and then all of a sudden he became, you know, an inside player that had perimeter skills. And he had a solid freshman year for us, but not spectacular. He wasn't all conference or anything like that. He had a good freshman year. We were happy to bring him back. But when he came back as a sophomore, he'd grown again. And he kind of filled out a little bit. And he's one of the hardest working kids I've ever been around. So he got better constantly and quickly. Wow. You know, so obviously, you're never sure a kid's going to go to the NBA, and just because there's so many things that can happen. But I mean, I thought he had a chance from his sophomore year. I mean, we talked about it last week when he came, and he said, "Coach, remember under that basket, you told me that I had a chance to go to the NBA." And I remember the conversation with him because I just knew with his size, his skill set, the way the game was changing, and just how much he'd improved in such a short space of time. If he kept going, I knew he had a real chance. I mean, I didn't know that he would get drafted. I said to people when I did all the stuff with the scouts, I told people, I don't think he'll get drafted, but I think he'll get a chance to go to camp. And everywhere he's been, every time he's played, he's blown people away.
Sure.
And but sure enough, the Pacers ended up drafting him, which was a great night when that happened. And I knew somebody at the Pacers, and they'd said if he's still around when we pick, we're going to take him. So, in my mind, I was like, well, so somebody's going to take him, or worst case, Pacers are taking him. But yeah, you never know. Somebody's available later. They didn't expect to be available. They can change their mind in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
You know, but it went down exactly how they said it was going to go down. So, just really good. And then didn't play much as a rookie. Spent more time in the G League, but he was bouncing back and forth. And then this year, was staying more with the Pacers than he was with the G League, and then the COVID hit, and then obviously he was in the bubble, so he was with the Pacers full time, right throughout the end of the regular season and the playoffs, and had a great game at the end of the season. He had a 17 rebound game against Miami, so he's done himself a lot of favors. So we'll see how he does, but yeah, I mean, I'll be. You know, you could almost put money. I'll probably never coach another draft pick again. I mean, I hope that's not true, but you never know.
Yeah, I said this, for a couple of times. People have heard me say this. You know, first of all, in the UK, there are in just the 32 London boroughs, there's an NBA player on every single, in every single London borough, and there are in the rest of the UK. It's just that, there is an element of luck to this, but. You've shown, over this 10-year period that, you're willing to find and look at the talent in a certain way. And if you've got that culture, there's no question you're going to have some opportunities again. I'm pretty certain.
I mean, we'll see. I mean, like I say, I keep talking about how good our league is, but there's 12 players in the NBA right now that have played junior college, and 6 of the 12 played in our league. You know, we're just a small 9-team league in West Texas, and there's 6 current NBA players in. I think there's been 8 or 9 since I've been in the league, and there's 40 or 50 over the years. I mean, Larry Johnson played in our league, Mookie Blaylock, Spud Webb, Craig Elo, Avery Johnson, Cheryl Swoops on the women's side. I mean, it's not just guys that got on the roster. We've got Olympians and
absolutely. I'm trying to think. I certainly had one. I've had one player, one of my ex-players, and I'm trying to think which one it was that played at Odessa for a short period of time. It wasn't Olu Babalolov, but he would have been a classic version of that. But it was certainly someone, one of our players that played there. He might not have played too much, but he went to Odessa. But
Odessa's had a lot. Yeah, Larry Johnson was from Odessa. Craig Elo, the one that Jordan hit the shot against Cleveland.
Absolutely,
Mookie Norris played at Odessa. Yeah, they've had several NBA guys. Midland has 2. Spud Webb, Mookie Blaylock, they all played at Midland.
Okay, Coach. Changing tack. Just thoughts. You know, you're obviously quite a way removed from British basketball now. You know, firmly entrenched. You know, in the U.S. college system. But you know, I know, you know, we've had offline conversations about you being involved in underage and national teams. What are your thoughts on, you know, the British basketball coaching fraternity? You know, the pathway. Any kind of thoughts with regards to that? You know, you feel that, you know, people should be reaching more out to you. I mean, just in general.
Yeah, I mean, I had about a 10 or 12 year period where I was back in England, you know, a couple times a year. I was running camps. I was speaking at coaches' clinics. I had multiple conversations about national things. We talked about it. I talked to Chris Finch, I talked with him about it, Tim Lewis. You know, so there was a lot of conversations about me doing that. And it never kind of came off. It was always, the coaches always were really positive and really pushing me to do it, but the decision makers never really kind of got involved with it. So, you know, I don't know the whole reasons behind it. I kind of got the impression when they had money, they didn't really want a British coach. They were trying to get more of a name. And then once they kind of ran out of money, they weren't really looking at somebody that was based in the U.S. So I don't know that that's what it was, but that's kind of the vibe that I got. So in these last couple of years, I've kind of drifted away a little bit. You know, coaches I'm friends with, ex-teammates, things like that, I still stay in touch with. I try to keep my kind of ear to the ground for players and things like that. And then, you know, I talk to guy Neil Hopkins, like guys that are running stuff with players, trying to help them out and get them over here. I try to stay on top of some of that stuff. But yeah, I haven't really done as much with the national team for a while. I kind of got just, you know, it's one of those things. If they're not interested, I'm not interested.
Sure. Are you kind of disappointed that you know, the you know, as a coaching fraternity, we don't kind of, you know, understand, reach out, keep you within the loop in some sort of way, you know, like what?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always happy to help. I want the help,
sure,
but you know, that's up to people to ask, and it's not my responsibility to keep, you know, volunteering myself.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. And that's why I wanted you on so early in this series, because, you know, it is criminal. I mean, you know, obviously I had, you know, Donna Finney on, you know, Coach Donna Finney 2 or 3 weeks ago. And so few people know her story, you know, which is, you know, again, you know, we have to be as a fraternity. I always said this, you know, one of the things that I did as a young coach was I wanted to know who the best coaches were, whether they were historic or whether they were my age or whether they were coming up, because, you know, that's what we need to know. You can't be just, you need to immerse yourself. And I feel we're certainly far away from that. I mean, it's just, you know, we're just not, we're still not as a collective at this moment, and we still don't know enough. And it is disappointing, but anyway, these things we hopefully, we're going to try to find a way of changing those things. You know, I always remain.
And then the guys that they've got coaching are good coaches. So it's not, I'm not sat here thinking, oh, I could have done better than him. I mean, they've had a lot of success, a lot of good coaches. You know, the guys doing it now, Alan Keane and Steve Beard, and those guys are good coaches. I mean, I don't think that I could do any better. It just did, you know, just the opportunity, if it was there, you know, I would. But at this point, you know, I've got 2 young kids, and the more I coach here, the more opportunities I'm getting over here. So that's kind of why these last couple of years I've kind of backed off it a little bit, because I'm doing stuff over here. You know, I've got the kids, so coming back to England's not quite as easy as it used to be, and you know, that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, I'm always available. There's coaches, I get 3 or 4 English coaches a year probably reach out to me about something. They email me, and I always respond. I always try to help them out.
Great.
You know, so I'm always happy to do it.
Okay, no problem. Okay, end of game questions, 4 rapid fire ones. This is always the toughest, or some of the toughest questions. Favorite player to coach?
I'd probably say Alize Johnson. That's the easy one. I mean, this is guys, Florida Tech. We had Ryan Ballard and Simon Cummings, Derek Cummings. They were great kids, great players that I'm still in contact with today. But Zay's the kind of the obvious one, obviously making it as far as he did. But just the way he did it, he wasn't lucky, and it wasn't an accident way he got to where he got to. He got there because of just extreme work ethic, and that kind of kid you can't help but root for, and they're a joy to coach, and they do more than you want. Some kids you're trying to beg to do what you need them to do. He's doing double, So yeah, I'd say Alvin Johnson.
Okay. Favorite all-time basketball coach?
Hubie Brown.
Okay, great. That's
I
the
like
second.
Hubie a lot.
Yeah.
I was lucky when I was at the high school and knew nothing. I got a chance to go to a coach's clinic in St. Louis, and he was one of the speakers. And I mean, he blew me away. I mean, and that was a clinic with Jim Calhoun and some other big-time coach. Tubby Smith was there, but Hubie was just on another level. And I was lucky that mid-season he joined the Grizzlies, and I actually wrote him a letter and just said, I really enjoyed watching you speak. If there's any opportunity to come to practice. 3 days later, he called me. And he said, come on down. You're welcome anytime. And I spent spring break of my junior year. I went down there and I spent a week with him. And he just opened the doors. He said the only thing he didn't want me to come to was the pregame shoot-arounds, but the games, the practices, the workouts, open. So I got to spend a week with him and you learn really quickly how little you know. And I'll tell you, Robert Archibald was on that team too.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, rest in peace, Robert.
Rest in peace. But him and Danny Richards, they'd gone to the Nike Euro camp back when they were juniors.
And there is a story to that. Actually, I was actually at that Euro camp. I'm pretty certain. If I wasn't at that Euro camp, I actually sent those two kids because I was doing my consultancy stuff with Nike at that time. And just before that, obviously, Drew Sullivan had gone to Eurocamp, and I actually spent the night. I had actually said this on one of my other podcasts, but I actually spent the night sitting next to Hubie Brown and at dinner because he was one of the guest lecturers at the camp. So yeah, I mean that's a great story, Coach. That's a great story. Go to favorite saying or statement that you say, often, daily maybe, or every few days?
I'd say the thing I say the most is probably stop the ball. I better say that 50 times in practice. But my favorite thing to say to guys whenever they complain, I always say, if it was easy, everybody would do it. I say that a lot too. That anytime they complain about a class, a workout, whatever it is, that's always my go-to answer. If it was easy, everybody would do it.
Okay, great stuff. Last one, favorite drill that you run, pretty often.
I'll give you kind of two answers to that. Shell drill is my go-to. If we do 90 practices in a year, we probably do shell drill 80 times. So I mean that's like shell drill at practice, like me brushing your teeth, daily. But my favorite drill among the guys probably we call it Purdue drill. You probably have seen it. I call it Purdue drill because I got it from Gene Cady when he was at Purdue. And you start with two teams, one at each end, 5-on-5 at each end. Starts with two guys get to rebound, one guy shooting the free throw is how we started. Shoot the free throw, and then you go 2-on-1. Two guys jump in, 3-on-2, 4-on-3, 5-on-4, 5-on, and we play it out. We play the 7 points.
Awesome.
So sometimes you get the 7. Sometimes even before you get to 5-on-5, sometimes you might do 7 or 8 possessions of 5-on-5 if they're tired and they miss it.
Okay. Is that how you run it? Okay. I run that drill. I learned that drill from Chris Finch. I call it odd man break. It's got a number of and there's actually one other coach has also talked about that. It's a great drill. I actually run it as a conditioning drill as well because I actually make every person shoot a free throw. So the score could be like 40, 35 because every player has to take a free throw. So it's like all those trips, plus 5-on-5 at least one time. So it's that's a great drill. But I love that to 7. I'm going to do that from now on. That's a great.
And then we usually play for about maybe 8 minutes. And each game usually takes about 2 minutes. So we'll probably get 4 games probably. Each team shoots first once, and we play to 7. And then I try to do that. Kind of get on a tangent now. the one thing I felt like with kids recently, I don't know if you got it in England so much, but the individual skills trainers, you know, and they over here, they're just I don't know what the qualification. I think you just have to have a set of cones. If you've got a set of cones, you can be a skills trainer.
Sure.
But kids are loving that, and they're doing it. And I think the decision making in games, or like, is gone. I mean, I would say kids now have better individual skills probably than they've ever had. I mean, I remember 10 years ago, that's the first thing we would do, and we'd spend the first few weeks correcting shots and, you know, speeding up releases and, you know, things like that. Most of these kids are coming in with pretty good skill sets. But then you put them in a situation where there's 9 other players around them, and they don't know. They're what I call them manufactured players. You got a kid that he can shoot, he can dribble, he's got good stand, he can do all these things, but he can't play basketball.
No.
You know, and that's what we're finding really difficult to put in positions where they learn.
That's a really great point, Coach. I actually take it a step further. My bugbear at this moment is young players, and even, you know, into mature professionals. Where I struggle to find the players that want to compete on every play. You know, it's like, I'll be honest with you, in the last couple of seasons, I've never believed that some players, like I had one of the senior player last year in Japan tell me, Coach, you know, day before the game, you know, we shouldn't tape today at all, and we shouldn't have any contact. And I'm like, you know, this is not the day of the game. This is a day before the game. I understand. We're tapered all the way down. We can't taper any further. I said, we can't go up. I said, what the hell? You know, and it's crazy. I mean, I started actually doing some drills, some of those old school kind of one-on-one, you know, desire drills, because I was like, look, you know, we can, as coaches, tactically, now the game is at such an advanced level. So, hey, we understand how to blow up a situation like a single high ball screen, or, you know, something on the side, or this multiple action. But what happens on the second and third action of that? We've blown the 2 actions up. Now you've got to win the battle one-on-one. And it's in here. You know, it can't be, you know, we got to be tactically correct as a team, but you got to decide you're going to stop this guy at one-on-one. You're going to fight the guy out because there's a size differential. And I'm really having a hard time, you know, trying to get through to younger players. Listen, you know,
that with the AAU side of things, because they play so many games. You can't worry about a loss because you got another game in 2 hours, you know, so they just forget about it. And I think it should stick with you a little bit longer than that.
Sure.
Everything we do in practice, everything's competitive. You know, whether it's an individual against an individual, team against the team, the whole team against the clock, whole team to get a certain amount of points, whatever it is, there's winners, there's losers. I want winners, I want losers, I want success, I want failure. I want them to compete, and that trying to get kids to compete, like exactly what you just said, it's difficult.
Crazy. Coach, listen, you know, I could talk to you for hours. You know, again, I can't tell you, you know, how honored it is to have you on the podcast. You know, your success has been incredible. I know there is another chapter for your, you know, for your coaching career. Hopefully we're going to have you on, if I can continue with this series, which I think I can, you know, but, you know, it's great that the young British coaches specifically can see what can happen if you have, you know, the desire, the work ethic, and, you know, the situation that you had. So I just want to thank you for being on the Pick and Pop podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me. And when you run out of people, we'll do a part 2.
Thank you, Coach. Let me